So as well as being posted in Google Classroom, your learning target is always going to be printed here in your notes as well. I like to make sure that I stay consistent for you guys so that even though it's not on the board, it is here in front of you on your paper and it is posted in your Google Classroom as well. Our learning target for today is the fact that you're going to be able to connect vocabulary terms to integer representations, and you're going to be able to identify the order and the absolute value that pertains to integers. So our first unit is our number sense, or our rational number operations unit. We're going to split that first unit up into two separate tests. The first test is going to be just purely focusing on integers and the operations that go with it. The second unit unit 1B test is going to be on fractions and decimals and the operations that pertain to that. And then everything, of course, is going to end with contextual problems. Contextual is a new fancy way of saying real world word problems. It's just contextual, okay? So, integers. What you're going to see today is basically a review of what you've already learned last year. It's just a quick review over that material. So our integers are going to be the set of numbers that are whole value, and they are positives, and their opposites, the negatives. And it also includes the value 0. Now, is 0 positive or negative? Neither. Very good. If you read down here real quickly, you would see that 0 is not considered to be a positive or a negative integer. It is its own value. Okay, so we want to go ahead and make sure that we have that understanding. I'm going to highlight that in my blue, that it is neither positive nor negative, and that my negative values on a number line tend to take place here on the left side of the number line. So I'm going to highlight that in my pink. And then in my green, I'm going to highlight where the positive values would take place. They take place to the right side of my number line. And now each number that exists on the right side has an opposite value or a counterpart value that is on the left side. So a positive 1 and a negative 1, a positive 2 and a negative 2. They are considered to be what we call 0 pairs. And what makes it a 0 pair is if I were to combine them together, they would equal 0. So let's say that I take the positive 5. What's its opposite? What's the opposite of positive 5? Negative 5. What's your name, honey? Ariana. Okay. So opposite of a positive 5 is going to be our negative 5. Okay. Now, when we take a look at the values of our 5 and negative 5, they have an equal distance between themselves and 0. If I were to count from 0 to a positive 5, that's going to move me 5 units. If I count from 0 to negative 5, I'm still going to jump 5 units. I had one student in a different class say, no, that's going to jump negative 5. That's negative 5 jumps. I'm going to ask you a question. You guys ever, jump rope? Yeah? Have you ever been able to jump rope negative numbers? No. If you're jumping, it's calculating, it's constantly moving. That's because it's calculating something. It's a distance value that you're calculating in this case. And distance cannot be calculated as a negative. It doesn't matter if you are driving north on Interstate 85 and then all of a sudden you remember that you forgot something at home, so then you turn around and drive south. Your car is not going to all of a sudden go, oh, you're going back home. Let's count backwards on the odometer. Okay, it's still going to calculate mileage on the car. It doesn't even matter if you decide to do it like a stunt double and drive backwards, reversing the car. It's still going to calculate mileage. Okay, so it is positive always. The distance from 0 is always going to be a positive value. Now, what makes them a 0 pair, again, is that if you were to combine them together, so again, I've got that positive 5 and I've got that negative 5. If I take the sum of a positive 5 and the negative 5, my answer is going to be 0. They zero out each other. They are 0 pairs. They set each other off or equalize each other. -7 and +7, 0 pairs. -12, +12, 0 pairs. Now, as a quick reminder, because a lot of people forget sometimes, that when you are comparing the value of a negative number, the larger the base number is, then the smaller the negative value is worth. Okay, so -2 compared to -7, -2 is going to be a bigger number. Even though 2 is not bigger than 7, when you add that negative sign in there, it changes it. So if you know how to order positive numbers or how to compare positive numbers, then when you're doing the negatives, which are called opposites, you do the opposite thing. When it was positive numbers, you went 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When it's negative numbers, you go -2 is going to go backwards, right? We're going to count backwards. -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. -7 is smaller than a -2. Okay? So taking a look here, looking at our statements, what symbol is this?
Less than.
Less than. It says it right here. What's the symbol? Greater than. What's the symbol? Equal to. We're going to use those. Those are inequalities or comparative values that we use to be able to compare two numbers, two or more sets of numbers. So I want you guys to take a moment, do problems 1, 2, and 3. You're going to identify what is your comparison value. Is it less than, greater than, or equal to? Comparing the first number to the second. Tell me, for problem number 1, -17 compared to -12, what is the symbol going to be? Let me pull up. We're going to go with, you. Okay, Ryan? Less than. Very good. So it is a less than symbol. -17 is smaller than the -12. Let's go ahead. Jackson, what is number 2? Greater than. Okay, -5 is greater than -10. And then for our last one, we're going to go with Serenity. Greater than. Okay, so we have a less than symbol, greater than symbol, greater than symbol. All right, so go ahead and take a time right now. We're going to put these values in order from least to greatest, always starting with your smallest negative sign, moving up to your largest positive sign. Go ahead and take a moment to do those.
-5 and -2, 0 to 7.
Very good. So starting off with the -5 and the -2, those are the only negatives that we have up here. -5 is the smallest, followed by the -2. Once you've utilized that value, it's always good to cross it off. And then, of course, we have a 0 value, which happens to be next. And then we're left with just our positive values. We have a +7 and a +3. So we're going to put them in order 3 and then 7. That's our order from least to greatest. For problem number 2, let's go ahead and go with EJ.
-4, -2, -1, 0, 1, 3, 5.
Very good. Okay. So again, starting with your smallest negative sign, working your way up to your largest positive sign. Okay. So now we're going to talk about some vocabulary here. Some vocabulary terms that indicate that we're dealing with a negative value or that we indicate dealing with a positive value. Now, we obviously have some basic blanket math terms that we use. So I'm going to throw a couple of those out there. We've got the value less than. Okay, that's an obvious one, or less. We've got the values like smaller. Okay, decrease. Below. These are values that we use often when talking in terms of math. But then we also have some real world or contextual vocabulary that is indicating a negative concept or a negative word. So when you borrow money, you're in debt. You owe money. If you've ever borrowed money or somebody's ever borrowed money from you, that's a negative value. And then furthermore, if you borrow money from a bank, it's called a loan, taking out a loan. That's a negative value, and it's a real world situation. When you go to the bank, you've got money that you have in the bank, but you want to take that money out. Anybody know what that's called?
Withdraw.
A withdrawal. Good. take the money out, it's called withdraw. Here's one that might trip you up a little bit. If you go flying in an airplane and the captain comes on and says, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We are about to begin our blank because they're about to land the plane. Connor? Descend. Descend. So you hear that a lot with planes. Okay? If you ever decide to go into the Navy and you're on a submarine, it descends. If you go scuba diving, you're descending in the water. Speaking of scuba diving, diving. Or dropping, falling. Those things, those are all terms. Okay? You ride a roller coaster. It dips, it falls, it has a drop. So these are all considered some terms for negative values. A loss. Forgot to mention that one. Loss. That's a really good one too. Okay? So, based off of some of these negative values that I've given to you, or negative vocabulary, let's go ahead and identify their direct opposites. Their positive terms. So, who can raise their hand and tell me what is the opposite of the term less? AJ? More. Okay. What is the opposite of smaller? Ooh, I got a lot of stuff. What's your name, honey? Christopher. Christopher. Bigger. Okay, people say bigger, larger. Okay, opposite of decrease. Is it Miguel? Okay, Miguel? Increase. Okay. Opposite of below. What's your name? J. Above. Okay. What's the opposite of owing money? What do you think, Ryan? Huh? Yeah, kind of like gaining. If instead of owing somebody money, somebody might give you money, right? Or you earn your money, right? Earning your money, money that you're being given, profit that you're earning, okay? So I'm not going to say giving, because giving sounds like you're giving it away. Given means it's been given to you. You're earning it, or it's been given to you. Now this one I might do for you guys, a loan. So the opposite of a loan. So a loan is essentially you borrow money from the bank. You owe money to the bank. So the opposite of you owing money to the bank is the bank owes money to you. And the way that the bank owes money to you is because you invested it or you've saved money. You have a savings account. Okay, so when you see the terms invest and save, those are positive things because you're earning money off of that investment. Okay? What's the opposite of a withdraw? Jackson? So what do we call that? There's a term for that. Deposit. Okay, opposite of descend. Opposite of descend. What do you think, Ariana? Ascend. Okay, so when the plane lands, it's descending. When the plane takes off, it's ascending. Okay, opposite of diving or dropping or falling. Instead of it dropping, it's going to what? What do you think, EJ? Rise. Okay, and then the opposite of loss. Ryan had said it before. Ryan, what was it?
Whoa.
Gain. Okay, so based off of these kinds of terms that we've got here, what I want you guys to do is flip your paper over to the back. And on the back, you've got 9 problems, 9 vocabulary situations. I want you to identify whether that situation is a positive, a negative, or is it neutral? Is it a 0 value? Identify positive, negative, or 0. All right, come back in 3, 2, 1. We're going to go ahead and do this as a class whole. So I'm going to say out the statement. You're going to just tell me out loud, positive, negative, 0. So gain of 6 pounds? Positive. So we're going to go ahead and write plus 6. Okay, loss of 10 yards? Negative. 1,000 meters above? Positive. O. You O? Negative. Ground level? 0. So we write 0. We're not going to write none because it is still a value. It is still a value, but it's a 0 value. Okay, 17 below? Negative. Sea level? 0. Depositing? Positive. Carter did. Carter came strong and wrong. Descending? Negative. Awesome. I'm glad that you felt that you can skip ahead, but we still want to make sure that we do it together, okay? Just in case. I encourage you guys to have that confidence to preview and review ahead of time, but always make sure that you still follow along in case you made a what? A mistake. Mistakes happen. I make mistakes all the time, and I'm supposed to be the teacher who's supposed to do it correct. But sometimes I'll say something and accidentally write down the wrong thing, and then I have to be reminded, you said 4, but you wrote down 7, and so I got to correct it. My mind runs faster than my brain, or my hand does sometimes. Okay, so absolute value, like we talked about earlier, it's distance. It's distance that a number is on that number line. How far away from 0 is that value? So remember, it doesn't matter if it's a negative value or a positive value, they all have positive distance. So remember, you can't jump negative amounts. Okay, so distance is always positive. Now, also something to keep in mind, absolute value works like parentheses. It works just like parentheses when it comes to order of operations, which means that you have to perform your absolute value first before anything else. So if you have other operations going on, you need to do the absolute value or what's inside of your absolute value first before you can perform the rest of the problem. So in problem number 1, there isn't any other situation except that it asks the absolute value. So the absolute value of 4 is going to give us what? 4. Absolute value of negative 30 is 30. So it does not matter. They're going to come out the positive. And absolute value of negative 4 is 4. Okay, so I wanted to make sure you guys had both 4 and negative 4 here so that you would understand they both have a distance of 4. Now, when we're looking at problems 4, 5, and 6, there's more than just absolute value. But like I said before, you treat absolute value like parentheses. So we have the absolute value of negative 3. This needs to happen first. We have to perform this before we can do the minus 5. What is the absolute value of negative 3? 3. And then we can bring down the rest of the problem here. We can bring down minus 5. Now keep in mind, we never subtract. We never subtract in math. We actually keep, change, and change. We're going to keep the first value, change it to addition, so we're really adding our inverse. So we're adding a negative 5 to it. What's 3 plus negative 5? You got $3, but you owe somebody $5. So do you still have money left? No, you still owe $2. You got negative 2 here. Okay? All right, here we have negative of the absolute value of negative 15. So again, you got to do that absolute value portion first. You got to do this little portion first before you can do the negative. What's the absolute value of negative 15? 15. And then you've got that minus sign that's on the outside, so it comes out to a negative 15. Here we have absolute value, but we have a problem inside of the absolute value. So we actually need to do this whole 4 minus 7 portion first before we can take the absolute value. 4 minus 7 is going to give us, nope, negative 3. Okay, so we have absolute value of negative 3, and then on the outside we have plus 9. So the next thing that we need to do is take the absolute value. What's the absolute value of negative 3? 3. And then what's 3 plus 9? 12. And then that's it. Okay? We do not have time to do our closing, so we'll take our closing and make it our warm-up on Monday. Go ahead and pack up.